Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all on behalf of Prabha Ketan Foundation with Asas Women of Pune to the Right Circle with Shri Jairam Ramesh ji in association with Lokmat. Our moderator for the session is Mr. Kumar Gera, a very eminent builder of Pune. In this time of lockdown, Prabha Ketan Foundation has connected us virtually to so many eminent authors of literary world that we wonder if we will need a live session ever again. A few words of introduction to Shri Jairam Ramesh ji. He is presently a member of Parliament of Parliament on Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Earlier, he was a member of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Health and Family Welfare. He has been Union Minister between 2006 and 14 and dealt with different portfolios like rural development, drinking water and sanitation, environment and forest, power and commerce. He is the author of several well-known books, including Green Signal, Ecology, Growth and Democracy in India, To the Brink and Becks, India's 1991 Story, Indira Gandhi, A Life in Nature, Intertwined Lives, P.N. Huxer and Indira Gandhi, and most recently, A Checkered Brilliance, The Many Lives of P.K. Krishna Menon. A few words about Mr. Gera. Kumar Gera is a civil engineer from Pune. He has been in the real estate business for 48 years. He is the chairman of Gera Development, who developed residential and commercial real estate in Pune, Goa, Bengaluru, and US with a team of 300 employees. He has served as nominated Director of National Skill Development Corporation of India. He has been member of State Planning and Task Force, National Housing and Habitat Policy of Government of India. He was the founder of Confederation of Real Estate Developers Association. He is the first Indian to be elected president of Junior Chamber International, and he has traveled to almost 42 countries. And before handing over to Kumar, I would like to tell all of our viewers that there will be a question answer session after 45 minutes. So please raise your hand or type your questions. You will be connected to the speakers. Thank you so much. Over to you, Kumar.
Thank you, Amita. Thank you, Right Circle, and thank you, Prabha Ketan Foundation, for this very interesting opportunity to have a chat with the multifaceted and most interesting personality that's before all of you today. Many of you are aware, and as mentioned by Amita just now, that his most recent book is on V.K. Krishna Menon, who was, I recall, our FST former defense minister. In addition to this, Mr. Ramesh has, as mentioned, authored various diverse topics, various different books, ranging from environmental issues to India-China dynamics, as well as globalization. I was asked, Jairam, to cover your journey and your books. Honestly, 30 minutes cannot do justice to the kind of journey you have had and are having. And the multiple issues that come to my mind that I would love to cover with you certainly cannot be done justice to in 30 minutes. But anyway, let's move on to the first part of our chat. I have multiple questions on your role as an author, but these are of a very general nature. I'm not going to talk about a specific book or something on page so-and-so you have said this and so on and so forth. But my question is more general in nature. How do you choose the subject of your book, your next book? Why do you choose that subject? What is your motivation as a writer? How do you assimilate the data and the facts? Because much of them you have to do a lot of research on. And do you write for fame? Do you write for money through royalties? Do you write so that you maybe get the stamp of being an authority on that subject? What really drives you? Would you please describe the process of authoring a book right from the germination of the idea in your mind to the ultimate launch, the publisher journey, the writing, the manuscripts, the rejection, the changes, the bouncing board, the whole process? Why I'm asking you this question, you should know. This is important because I think some people in this audience might like to travel down this path. So over to you to give us this comprehensive brief reply.
Well, Kumar, the answer to your question is very straightforward. After 2014, I have written 7 books, and I have to thank Mr. Narendra Modi for it. We lost the election in 2014. We lost the election in 2019. And so I had a lot of time on my hands in order to fulfill all the ideas that I had for writing. If I look back in the pre-2014 period, I had written only 2 books. But after 2014, in 6 years, I've been able to produce 7 books. And that's entirely because, I've had a lot of time. First. Second reason, I write on topics which interest me. I write on people who interest me. I write on themes that interest me. However, I write only when there is primary archival material available. If there is no archival material available, I don't write. Simple as that. I don't want to write, based on somebody's oral recollection. I don't want to write based on somebody's memory. I don't want to give my ideas unless there is something actually written. So the availability of primary archival material, availability of written material is absolutely essential for me to write a book, particularly a biography. And thirdly, the question that you asked, I don't write for fame. I don't write for money. I make good money. The books have done well. But I think, I want to leave behind, this is the only legacy I can leave behind, Kumar, an intellectual legacy. So I want these books, these are biographies, some of them are not biographies, but each of them fulfills what, in my view, a particular need and niche. So this is writing for a legacy, not writing for a remuneration or fame.
And not for becoming an authority on the subject.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't want to become an authority on a subject, but I do want to do exhaustive research when I write my book. The 3 biographies I have written so far are based on a lot of archival material, a lot of primary documentation. India is an oral culture, Kumar. Ramayana, Mahabharata, all these books came down to us through the oral tradition. We do not have a written tradition in our country. And I want to stress to the younger generation of scholars that we need to write. Scholarship should be based on primary evidence, on contemporary evidence.
Yeah.
It should not be based on somebody's likes and dislikes. So that's the answer to your question, really.
Did you by any chance get a chance to, you must have been pretty young, but did you get a chance to interact with V.K. Krishna Menon?
No, never. No, I mean, I just, I was 13 years old in Bombay, and I did go to an election rally right next to my house.
Yeah.
Where Krishna Menon was the candidate. But that time, I was hardly interested in politics. But all that struck me was, here was Krishna Menon speaking perfect, impeccable English. And the audience was all Marathi knowing. He couldn't speak one word of Marathi. He couldn't speak one word of Hindi.
He contested from the North Bombay election.
Bombay North, what is now Bombay Northeast.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up in Powai. So in the IIT campus. So that's what, he represented at that point of time. No, I'd never met him. I'd never met P.N. Huxer, another person whom I've written a biography. I never met Indira Gandhi, whom I have written.
Are you serious?
I've never met her. I mean, I joined the government of India in 1983. She was assassinated in 1984. I knew Mr. Rajiv Gandhi and I worked with him, but I never ever met Indira Gandhi at all, you know.
Okay, let's move now to the Congress party. You know, in an interview with Karan Thapar, this was about 5 months ago, you said something, and I'm quoting you because I went back to that YouTube, and you said the Congress party is in a serious situation. It faces unprecedented challenges. It has structural problems and is being tested. While I think nobody would disagree with your comments, and personally, if you ask me, I admire you for saying it as it is. I really do. You made another statement which is slightly different in another interview which pertained, I think, to the recent Maharashtra alliance, where you said that many decisions have to be taken in politics, keeping in mind, and I quote, the cost-benefit analysis, right? Now, this comment is right out of business parlance, Jairam, you will agree. But the point I'm leading to is something else. I see, after seeing your comment, I started scratching my head. And I see huge similarities in running a business and operating a political party. Very great similarities. There are, on the one hand, large businesses that are family businesses, doing very well, and we could list probably 200 of them in this country, doing brilliantly. So my first question is, am I right in pointing out similarities? And perhaps the Congress is a large family business headed by certain patriarchs. I have a family business, I lead it. It's been 3 generations. And the BJP, on the other hand, is a large business, but a corporate organization, which can have any different CEO from time to time. And the second question that I want to raise, so that you could probably pick up both and cover them, is that you talked about the need for structural reforms, and you said this 5 months ago. So are some structural reforms really taking place in the Congress party? And if so, what is happening? Because it's needed. You have said this. I think a lot of people appreciated your comment, your well-wishers. Even people on the other side of the aisle must have appreciated your comments as being truthful and from the heart. So is something happening? And if so, what? Both these things.
I think, Kumar, the first question, there is no similarity, no comparison between running a business and running a political party. There is absolutely no comparison. They are entirely different. Business can be focused. It can be focused on profits. It can be focused on turnover. It can be focused on, specific metrics. But political parties have multiple objectives. Political parties have multiple constituencies to cater to. The stakeholders are more diverse than in a business. And you cannot run a political party along corporate lines, because political parties deal with sentiments, they deal with emotions, they deal with passions, they deal with prejudices, which businesses don't. So businesses can be straightforward, can be very focused. Businesses can be, very, very sharply have a sharp eye on the bottom line or on the top line. But political parties have to be necessarily cautious, 1 step forward, 2 step backward type of a thing. And compromise is the essence of political parties. In businesses, you don't have compromise. In businesses, you just focus on the bottom line. So that comparison is simply not tenable. I mean, it's attractive. People talk about it, but it's not tenable. Secondly, political parties in India are becoming family businesses. The CPM is not a family business. One would argue that the BJP yes, leadership turnover takes place in the BJP, but then the BJP, there is a holding company called the RSS, which decides who is the CEO. But if you look at all the regional parties, if you look at the Congress party, certainly in terms of leadership, this argument could be made. However, I think there is a fundamental difference, Kumar. This is leadership that is accountable. Mr. Rahul Gandhi lost in Amethi. Indira Gandhi, the great Indira Gandhi, lost in Rai Bareli in 1977, and she was re-elected in 1980. This does not happen to a Mukesh Ambani or an Anil Ambani, or some corporate honcho. The accountability to the people is fundamental, is intrinsic in a political party. And if you don't perform, pretty soon you either decide to leave or you're forced to exit.
And on the second point of structural reforms?
Yeah, I'm coming to the point of structural reforms. I think, yes, I think the Congress party needs to be more decentralized. It needs to go back to the era when it had a Kamaraj in Madras, a Y.B. Chavan in Maharashtra, a B.C. Roy in Bengal, a C.V. Gupta in UP, or a Ravi Shankar Shukla in Madhya Pradesh. We are a national party, but we have to develop strong regional leadership. And the central leadership should not and cannot feel threatened by the development of this local leaders. And this is certainly one structural reform that we should carry out. A second structural reform, we must throw open, positions should not be based on patronage. Positions should not be based on dynastic considerations, but it should be based on performance. It should be based on, do you deliver? Do you bring something to the table? And we should, the Congress has always been a broad umbrella. The Congress has not been a one caste or one language or one region or one religion party. We have been a broad umbrella bringing all sections of society together. That capability we have lost in the last few years, and we have to recapture that nature of the Congress that brings people together and that does not split Indian society on religion, on language, or on caste. So these are the types of structural reforms, and thinking is started, people know about it. And let's see, hopefully after this COVID pandemic is over, when we get back to normal politics, some of these structural reforms will actually begin to take place. Because, we are facing a very severe crisis. We have 20% of the vote share. We are in power only in 4 states of the country. This is the mighty Congress party. There's a lot of goodwill and support for the Congress party, even amongst people who don't vote for the Congress. So we have to get back that confidence and support of the people. We have lost the confidence and support.
Sorry to jump in, but I feel on this point, and I'll just say it in passing quickly, that it's been 5 months since you raised the point. You're raising it again today. It's really a good point. It needs to be addressed. Every well-wisher will want it to be addressed, but we are not seeing it happen on the ground. You should take note of that. Coming back to your earlier point,
we didn't see it before the COVID crisis, and certainly in the last 2.5 months we have not seen it. But I'm hopeful, Kumar, that things will begin to happen later down this year. And
good luck on that. But coming back to your earlier point, I think when you visit Pune, you said you'll be visiting Pune. I think we'll pick up that discussion, because I'm sorry you didn't convince me about there not being similarities, because both want to build their brand, whether it's a business, whether it's a political party. In business, the end bottom line may be profit. In political parties, the bottom line is number of seats. In top line may be number of votes. There, the top line would be your turnover. The strategy to take employees who are competent. You have to get workers who are competent, give tickets that are competent. There are too many similarities, but as I said, we'll pick it up when we meet and continue this dialogue. And I think I'll learn a lot from your point of view and maybe change mine. Okay, so now let's come closer to my home, Maharashtra. You know, the recent shocking changes that took place, and it's generally accepted that the glue that is binding the NCP, Congress and Shiv Sena is the BJP Hatao glue, and keep the BJP out. And I think you've said this also, that compromises have to be made with that larger objective in mind. Personally, if you ask me, I think this coalition will last. I think this coalition will last perhaps 4.5 years, just before the next elections, when things have to be sorted out for 2024. But you have commented, and again I'm going to your comment, that there is anguish at all levels in the Congress party over the coalition with the Shiv Sena. So, do you think there would also be anguish, perhaps in the Shiv Sena, in their workers, in their cadres, over the coalition with the Congress? There's every likelihood that it could be both.
Kumar,
Now, if this be the case, I'll just finish quickly, then I'll pass it on to you. If this be the case, that there is genuine anguish across workers and the leaders at both ends, do you think this could come back to bite you both because of the voters' sentiments also being on the similar lines, to bite you both, and both may be losers in the next election? What do you feel about that?
Well, Kumar, you know, the Maharashtra alliance is based on an ancient Kautilian principle that the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so that is holding us to, that brought us together, and that will hold us together, even though we have a program of joint program of action. So it's true that it was the enemy of my enemy being my friend, which provided the glue for this alliance. However, there is a lot of history, Kumar, which people forget. The Shiv Sena in the 1960s was cultivated by S.K. Patil and V.P. Nayak in Bombay to break the stranglehold of the left in the trade union movement.
Yes.
You know, I grew up in Bombay, and I know Bal Thackeray's target were the South Indians. And the target was the communists. And the Congress party supported the Shiv Sena. And in fact, in Krishna Menon's election, which I have mentioned in my book in 1967, the Shiv Sena campaigned for the Congress candidate, S.G. Barve, a very distinguished ICS officer. He was the Congress candidate. He died within a few days. Then his sister, Tarabai Sapre, became the Congress candidate. And the Shiv Sena campaigned for the Congress against Krishna Menon. So, now, if you look at Balasaheb Thackeray, Balasaheb Thackeray's great role model in Indian politics was Indira Gandhi. He supported the emergency. He supported Abdul Rahman Antule. Antule was not acceptable to many congressmen, but it was Thackeray who came out in support of A.R. Antule as Chief Minister of Maharashtra in 1981. So, you know, it's not as if the Shiv Sena and the Congress party, you know, have not had a relationship in the past. They have had relationships in the past. It's only after 1990, in my view, that the Hindutva agenda takes over and Balasaheb Thackeray becomes very close to the BJP. He may have been close to the BJP, but he never went to Vajpayee's house. He never went to Advani's house. Vajpayee and Advani came to call on him. So, you know, he asserted the independence. I am hopeful that this alliance will last. I know Uddhav Thackeray. I know his son. I know the Shiv Sena people. And I think we've got a good program of action. We've got Sharad Pawar there. And, you know, Kumar, they may have been anguish outside Maharashtra Congress. But in Maharashtra Congress, all the MLAs who were elected wanted this alliance with the Shiv Sena and the NCP. This alliance would not have taken place had the local congressmen, Ashok Chavan, Prithviraj Chauhan, Balasaheb Thorat, All these, Manikraj Thakre, all these congressmen wanted this alliance. Now, it's true that there was anguish in the national leadership. How can we tie up with the Shiv Sena, which has been a partner of the BJP? But as I said, we had to compromise. The Shiv Sena had to compromise. Compromise is the essence of Indian politics. And I am pretty confident, I'm pretty hopeful that this alliance will run its full course of 5 years.
Yeah, I think also that it will and it should. But the point is that, just again going back to my example of a business, three partners not able to agree on a product. The issue being the Hindutva, the different objectives at the end of the day. Three partners in a business. One wants to make money, other wants to build brand, third wants to increase the top line. Each one pulling in different directions. Tough challenge.
Well, it'll be tough, but Mr. Thakre has committed himself to upholding the constitution. He's committed himself in writing to upholding the preamble of the constitution, which commits India to being a secular, democratic republic. So I'm hopeful compromises will be made. It will be rough going. There will be, as I said, one step forward, two step backward type of a thing. There'll be some tutu meme here and there. But on the whole, I think this alliance will stick, it will hold. And I think we are committed to making this alliance work.
And it won't come back to bite you all. Okay, good. Now, I need some tips to understand how we as ordinary citizens should get the honest, truthful news from the media. Today we are finding that whether it's the print media or the digital media, if you read this newspaper, it's slanted towards this party. If you read that, it's slanted elsewhere. How do we get it? How do you get the real news? If you share it with us, because I'm sure you're aware of this, there are allegations that somebody sold to this house and somebody sold to that house and all kinds of things. What do you do? How do you get the real news?
Unfortunately, the social media, which is an instrument of great transparency and democratization, has also become an instrument for the dissemination of a lot of fake news. And this is a very serious problem. WhatsApp University is a very dangerous university.
Absolutely.
We have deemed universities. WhatsApp University is a doomed university because of the type of information that it provides.
So how does Jairam get the real news?
It's a very difficult question. You have to really sift. You have to really get multiple viewpoints. You have to check. You have to cross-check. It's not easy. We are living in in an era of instant judgment. We are living in an era of instant yes or no. No maybes, no shades of gray. So I have no magic formula, Kumar, except that people have to be extraordinarily careful and we have to check, we have to counter check, we have to cross check, and this takes time. And these are difficult times, and social media has made the task even more difficult. And of course, the print media, people have called it all sorts of names, Godi media, but it's not the media that's Godi, it's the owners who are Godi, perhaps. Because, I find journalists doing their work, journalists writing, but I think the owners, unfortunately, end up becoming in bed, whichever the political party in power is. And that's not...
That's sad. That's really sad. So coming back to the books part of it, before I go to rapid fire, this will be the last sort of section. Which of your books have you enjoyed doing the most? Which of those books was like your pet or your favorite child?
You see, I loved writing the Indira Gandhi book on the environment because Indira Gandhi is a very controversial figure. She is, to many people in India, Durga Mata, but she is also the architect of the emergency, right? She invokes very strong passions. You're either a great admirer of Indira Gandhi or you're a very great critic of Indira Gandhi. My good friend Madhav Godbole, a very distinguished civil servant who lives in Pune, is a very strong critic of Indira Gandhi, as an example. But, what I did in that book on Indira Gandhi was to bring out a dimension of Indira Gandhi that was unknown to most people. That she was really not so much of a politician as much as she was an environmentalist. She was a nature lover. And today, the environmental laws we have in our country, the environmental institutions we have in our country, the environmental regulations which we have in our country are all entirely because of her leadership. And she had one very simple principle, Kumar, which I think we must remember in the middle of this COVID crisis. This crisis is a public health crisis, but it's also an environmental crisis. It's been brought about by the way we have dealt with the environment. And I discovered that Indira Gandhi's favorite saying was, Prakriti Rakshati Rakshataha. Nature protects those who protect it. And this is what, I have expanded in that book. Nature protects those who protect it. You attack nature, you will have tsunami, you will have earthquakes, you will have floods, you will have, deforestation. But
Yeah.
you protect nature, nature will protect you. So
can you give this message to Donald Trump?
Not only I have to give this message to Prakash Javadekar first,
Yeah.
because Mr. Prakash Javadekar, a good friend of mine, very nice man, I'm very fond of him, but he believes he's not Minister for Environmental Protection. He believes he's Minister for Environmental Approvals. So merrily he keeps giving, of course, Prakash's hands are tied. He is told to do what he does what he's told to do. Upar se aata hai. But nevertheless, I think that book I really enjoyed because I think it was very timely. India is facing an environmental crisis. And I think we should remember the manner in which Indira Gandhi dealt with environmental issues. We look upon her as a politician. We look upon her as the architect of Bangladesh. But bottom line, she cared for the environment, and hers was a life. She saw herself as a child of nature, not as a child of politics.
Yeah. About V.K. Krishnamenon, I don't recall now, but I seem to recollect that he made a really long speech in the United Nations.
The longest speech in the United Nations. The longest speech. Incidentally, Kumar, my Indira Gandhi book was translated into Marathi by my good friend Madhav Gokhale, who writes for Sakal. Who works for Sakal, and the biography of Indira Gandhi and P.N. Haksar and Indira Gandhi has also been translated into Marathi by Sujata Godbole, Madhav Godbole's wife. And it would have been published had this crisis not taken place, and hopefully it will be published a couple of months from now. And I'm hoping the Krishnamenon book also will get translated into Marathi at some stage. Yeah, he spoke for 8 hours, the longest speech ever in the United Nations. This was on Kashmir, that gave him instant fame, and he was able to win the Bombay election in 1957 without even campaigning, because he became a hero because of the speech. Those were the days when you could win an election from Bombay without being able to speak Marathi or Hindi or even going out to campaign. It's unimaginable today.
Yeah. So I'll go to the last part, Jairam, and that's the rapid fire, because I think I have to hand you back to the ladies who have a bunch of questions for you. I think Neelam and Sujata and Amita will be packaging those questions. But my rapid fire starts with, and you've got to choose the 2 names. There are names from which you have to choose one of the 2. So the first is Chetan Bhagat or Arundhati Roy.
Sorry, Chetan Bhagat or?
Arundhati Roy.
Arundhati Roy, any day.
Okay. Rahul Gandhi or Priyanka Gandhi?
Sonia Gandhi.
Come on, give the answer. You're a guy who talks straight. You don't go around in bush.
Well, that one I'll pass.
You pass. Okay. Narendra Modi or Amit Shah?
I'll pass that. Both are bad.
Hey, come on. You can't
Neither.
Okay. Amitabh Bachchan or Sachin Tendulkar?
Amitabh Bachchan.
Arnab Goswami or Navika Kumar? They are in different channels now.
Navika. Because I
Navika.
know her. I mean, I know both of them, but Navika is like marginally better.
Okay.
Marginally better.
Marginally. Okay, emphasis on marginally. Sharad Pawar or Uddhav Thackeray?
Right now, both.
Come on. Three of those questions you've been a true
No, I
politician.
can't. I mean, this is not. See, Kumar, the Hindu, 1,000 years ago, Al-Baruni, when he came to India, he wrote a book on India. And he said that the Hindu is a very strange animal because when he is given a choice, he selects both. There is nobody else in the world who selects both. So, I'm selecting both. You can have
Okay.
both. That's
Okay.
the essence of Hinduism.
You found your way
teaches
out of
you
that
to
one.
live with contradictions. It teaches you to live with ambiguity.
Okay, the last two. Vijay Mallya or Nirav Modi?
Neither. Neither.
There again, okay. And last one, Harish Salve or Kapil Sibal?
Well, I would have to take Kapil.
You would have to.
Yeah.
Got the
I
message.
like Harish. He's a very close friend of mine. We are in constant touch, but I'll go with Kapil.
But if I stretch that point to talk that in terms of being a legal luminary, being a great lawyer, if you were in a problem tomorrow, who would you go to?
Well, that'll be a difficult choice. I may go to Chidambaram,
Good politician, Jairam.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just end by saying, Jairam, it's really been a pleasure interacting with you. And I so do hope that we can do this sometime again on a face-to-face basis.
Sure.
With or without an audience, it doesn't matter. It would be a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kumar. Yes.
Okay, I think I take forward. It's been a very interesting talk between Kumar and you, sir, and there are plenty of questions waiting in line. Very interesting. I'll go with the first one. It's from Mohini from Pune, Mohini Karkaria. And she said, please would you elaborate on developments vis-a-vis environment? At the moment, the environment is taking a real bashing.
Well, it's true. I mean, and right now, with the focus going to be on economic revival and economic growth, there may be further compromises made on the environment. And this is a cause for great worry. But we must realize that this crisis has an environmental dimension. Environmental issues have public health consequences, whether it's pollution, air pollution, water pollution, chemical contamination. These all have public health impacts. And therefore, I think we need a far greater emphasis on protecting the environment, not just for the sake of the future generations, but also for protecting ourselves, protecting our rivers, protecting our forests, protecting biodiversity. After all, how did this crisis arise? This COVID crisis has arisen because of a wet market in Wuhan. I, for one, I am all for banning wet markets. I think this is the way we play with nature and nature hits back at you.
So true. So true. And what do you think we should do to get back to and nurture the nature and get back to less of this pollution and environment that you're talking about?
Well, we have laws, we have institutions, we have regulations. We must enforce these laws without fear or favor. We must allow these institutions to function. We must develop a civic sense of responsibility. Why should we pollute our rivers? I don't understand. We worship our rivers and we pollute our rivers. We worship our forests and we deforest. We worship our mountains and we, degrade our mountains. I don't understand this paradox, On the one hand, look at all our gods and goddesses. Look at Ganesha, Vakratundam, the curved trunk, the most popular god in India. We worship Ganges, we worship Himalayas. But when it comes to the crunch, we as people treat nature very, very cavalierly, and that is very wrong and very bad.
So true. And I think India takes the most upbeat on all this with all our religious activities that happen here. Absolutely well said. There's another question.
Neelamji, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes,
There are guests who have risen their hand So
Okay.
we'll take their questions first.
Sure,
Kathy,
yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Gauri Deshpande, Kathy, can you just put her?
Gauri's questions are here too, and I was going to get them. So you're going to put her directly?
We'll put her on audio.
Yeah, okay. Have you got it? Have you put her? Is she coming?
Yes, Neelamji, she will be coming. Kathy is putting her on.
Okay, okay. Her question is here as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can I go ahead then ask a question? She's asked about archival evidence. How does one check the authenticity while you write a book, particularly a biography? Is Gauri Deshpande's question to you, sir.
Well, I prefer to go by written evidence over oral evidence, and I prefer to go by contemporary written evidence, not written evidence that gets manufactured 20 years later. That's why doing archival research is very, very important. Whether it's the National Archives, whether it is the Nehru Memorial. Unfortunately, we do not have a written culture in our country. Unfortunately, our archives are not in good shape as they are in other universities in other parts of the world. But yes, you need to cross-check even the written material. But by and large, given a choice, I would go with archival material more easily and more directly than oral history.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
There's another one from Gauri Deshpande again. What is one particular character attribution of Mr. V.K. Menon that you would like to highlight in today's session?
Well,
yeah, we all want to know actually more about Mr. Menon for sure. Yes.
Well, Krishna Menon's greatness, I think, was that, he stood up for India at a time when the world was white. I mean, today the world is far more heterogeneous. But remember, we are talking of the 40s and the 50s, where the white man was supreme. The United Kingdom was supreme, the United States was supreme, and the white man told the black man and the brown man what he did. But Krishna Menon stood up for India, stood up for his principles, and he didn't give a damn what people thought about him. And I think that was, to me, the most fascinating aspect of his personality, which is even relevant today. Stand up for your convictions, stand up for what you believe is right. Don't be in a beauty contest all the time, but have the courage of your conviction.
Yeah, thank you, sir. That's great. There's another one that's come up with from Mr. Rohinton. I don't know whether anyone's coming on to ask directly. No. Mr. Rohinton is asking, you mentioned that you like to write about people who you have liked, into italics. How do you ensure that your writing remains objective and not particular only to the good of the subject?
Well, it's very difficult. One has to keep a distance from one's subject. When you write a biography, you either fall in love with your subject or you hate your subject. Most biographers either love their subjects or they hate their subjects. So it's very difficult. You have to you have to keep a distance. You have to be totally objective. And that's what I have tried to do. If you look at my book, even on Indira Gandhi, many of my Congress friends were not very happy that I was critical of Indira Gandhi. Many people who have read my Krishna Menon book are unhappy that I have been critical of Mr. Nehru for encouraging Krishna Menon the way he did. But as a scholar, as a biographer, I have to actually be very objective. In fact, I think to me, a biographer should not be judgmental. A biographer has to ascertain. He doesn't have to assert. He has to put the evidence to the reader to make up his mind. So I do not write biographies in order to judge people. I write biographies in order to tell a story. Remember, the word for history in all Indian languages is itihas. And what does itihas mean? Itihasa. This is what happened. Thus it was. So I write itihas. I don't write history.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. There's another question by Shalini, Miss Shalini, coming here, and she's asking something about media. That's interesting. Actually, media nowadays is working like ad agencies. You pay and content is written for your contentment and not to give a crystal clear picture. What is your say, I think?
I agree. I mean, the media has become views, not news. You need news. You don't necessarily require all the time. You don't need views. I think the nexus between business and media has become very close.
Yeah.
I think the nexus between politics and media has become very close.
True.
We need an independent. Why can't we have a BBC type of an organization in India? I've always, we need public broadcasters. We need public television. We need, for example, in the United States, you have C-SPAN, you have PBS. In England, you have the BBC. In India, we have Doordarshan, which is a spokesman for the party in power. And that should not be the case.
Yeah, sure. And then she goes on to say, what would you suggest that they do to keep politics and financial influences away from media? They have, like you said, we should go the other way, like how BBC.
Well, the more, I mean, we have, for example, we have the Tribune, which is published from Chandigarh. It is run by a trust. It's not run by any company. So that gives it a certain degree of independence from the political establishments. So I think that ownership of the media is very, very important. Cross ownership is something that we should be very careful about. If the TV guy is owning a newspaper and is owning a social media outlet, that leads to monopolies, And I don't think we should end up having monopoly in the media. Monopoly in any field is bad.
Absolutely. It leads to power, right? There's another question which is anonymous, but I would like to take it up also. How can accountability parameters be specified for an MLA or an MP?
Well, the biggest form of accountability for an MP or MLA is the election, right? If you have delivered, you win. If you have not delivered, you don't win. So that is accountability. But I think there are rules. There are transparency rules, declaration of asset rules. Now a Lokpal has been established. In the state level, we have Lok Ayuktas. So I think today there are enough instruments of accountability on transparency. I mean, take my example. I have to make my assets. I have to declare my assets every year. Every time I fight an election, I have to file an affidavit. All this is made public. So actually, today, a politician's in financial information is much more available in the public domain than it ever has been.
Perfect. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. There's another one coming from Nalini Mehra, very interesting. How do you hold on to your own when you don't agree with the party that you are a part of? Wow.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
How do you hold on to your own when you don't agree with the party that you are a part of?
Well, as I said, most of the time I try to say what I mean and mean what I say. But there are occasions in which you say my Congress party may take a particular position and I am not in agreement with that. And I keep my mouth shut. You have to go along because there is a certain thing called party organization and party discipline. Occasionally, I have given expression to my point of view, but parties are successful only if there is vigorous internal democracy, where we are able to see the Japanese model is very good. In Japan, they take a long time to arrive at a decision. A lot of discussion takes place, a lot of argument takes place, but once a decision is taken, everybody conforms to that decision. I think I've tried to follow that principle most of the time. Sometimes I've not been successful, but most of the time, you make your views known, you make your point of view known. The party may decide to agree with you or not to agree with you, but once the party has decided, then you jolly well have to go along.
Oh, so you have to go along with the party and you have to keep
Absolutely. I mean, you can't, I mean, otherwise we'll all be a bunch of individualists. No, ultimately, we're talking of groups. A party is a collection of individuals. Individuals may have different points of view, but ultimately there is a consensual point of view. Remember, there's a difference between having a consensus and being unanimous.
Yes.
Unanimous means everybody is of the same view. Consensus is that people have different points of view, but they come around to a common position. And I would be far more happier with a consensus type situation rather than a unanimity type of a situation.
Sure. Yeah.
Can we just to interrupt you, Mr. Ajay Agarwal has risen his hand, so he
Can
would like
you put him on directly, please?
yeah.
Yeah.
We're just putting him
Yeah,
on.
yeah, sure. I have a couple of more here, but I would like you to put him on directly. Yeah, sure. Go
Hi,
ahead.
Jairam. This is Ajay. We got together in 2014 through a mate of yours from IIT, Suresh Divakar, and you have been a rural development minister. And today we are seeing the real face of rural India through these migrants on the roads. If you are a shadow rural development minister today, what will you do to solve this or to address this issue?
Well, I'm absolutely appalled that we have the transportation facilities with us, but we have not deployed buses. We have not deployed all the other facilities that we have to transport migrants from where they are working to their homes, and we have allowed them to walk, for hundreds of miles together. This is a humanitarian issue. It's so distressing and anguishing, and it's a collective shame. I agree, but the fact of the matter is that facilities are available. We could have run the trains, we could have run the buses, we could have commandeered all the tempos and the buses that are available, in various government departments, and we could have deployed them. I think it was sheer callousness. I think it was sheer insensitivity on our part, and I think it's really a collective shame. And I can't really say anything other than this: that the way, if there is one thing that should shame us in the last 65 days, it's the way we have allowed the migrants to really fend for themselves, and this has come at a great social cost. I would have used all the facilities in the central government. I would have commandeered buses. I would have run the trains. I would have run helicopters. I would have run buses. I would have run trucks. The job was to transport men, women, and children from location A to location B. I mean, we can send. We're thinking of sending man to the moon. We're launching satellites. We're doing Gaganyaan, Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, but we can't move people from position A to from A to B, a matter of 40 or 50 kilometers. I mean, it's mind-boggling, and I think the only reason is insensitivity.
Can I take over?
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you.
There's a lovely question over here. You've been a rural development minister, and now we are seeing the actual face of the rural India through these migrants on the road. What solution do you suggest as a shadow rural development manager to these current situations, sir? There's a question.
Well, I've just answered this question.
Okay.
This question, yeah.
It's from, okay, so it's answered. Anjali, I hope you got it clear there. Anjali Patwardhan had asked that. And hasn't the lockdown already given a positive effect on our environment? But that's not the reality, isn't it? So I don't know what you'd have to say with this.
Well, I think this yes, of course, the air is cleaner. We can see mountains, we can see wild animals.
Absolutely.
But this is not way we need to protect the. This protection of the environment is coming at a huge economic and social cost, and we cannot destroy livelihoods and protect the environment. We need economic growth, we need jobs, we need livelihoods, but we need clean air, clean water for us. So I am, while I am very happy that I am not coughing in Delhi, I am very happy at seeing birds and animals and clean air and mountains and so on, blue sky. But this is not the way I would have done it, because it's come with great economic and social costs.
That's true. It's a suppression and it's not the reality. It's so absolutely true. It's has a great cost to that. There's one very interesting that's come over here from Jitendra Munot, my friend. And he says, you mentioned COVID-19 spread due to the wet market and not due to the Chinese lab. What's your say on that?
Well, right from day one, I've been saying that this wet market was the villain of the piece. And we should actually ban wet markets. And this wet markets, of course, all over China, all over Southeast Asia. We have some wet markets even in India, but I don't see. I think this is a wake-up call, and all these viruses have been zoonotic in nature, and I think the existence of the wet markets is becoming a huge hazard, and the world has had to pay a horrendous price for not doing anything about these wet markets.
That's evident over here. That's so true. There's one last question. I don't know if I have time, but it's from Sujata, from a panelist here, and she says, coming back to your book, I've always wondered, Nehru was so heavily influenced by Krishna Menon towards turning India into a socialist state instead of capitalist. How did that change India's destiny?
Well, Nehru was not influenced by Krishna Menon. Nehru was a socialist himself. So Krishna Menon was influenced by Nehru. Nehru influenced Krishna Menon. They were actually soulmates, and I have discussed this complex relationship in the book. But Nehru was a socialist. Socialism was very much, in the air. I mean, that was the dominant economic theme in the 30s and 40s, that when India became independent, we need a strong state, we need a welfare state, we need a public sector, we need planning. This was the dominant consensus at that time. And Nehru, of course, was the most eloquent and powerful spokesman of this point of view. He was a socialist. There's no question, there's no running away from that fact. And I think at that point of time, it was the right strategy for India to adopt.
Thank you, sir. It's been a great afternoon talking to you this evening. I'll hand it over to Sujata for the vote of thanks. Sujata?
Yes, Sujata.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Neelam. I would like to I would like to really appreciate the great conversation we just had. Jairamji, you were, so interesting. It was such an interesting conversation. Kumar Gera, sir, you also were great. And I really enjoyed the dialogue, especially that last bit of rapid round. I would also like to thank Prabhakirtan Foundation for organizing this great event, for the whole team. Special thanks goes to our hotel sponsors, Hotel O, and our media sponsors, Lokmat. And of course, all the participants and the guests who came on this show and were with us in this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sujata. Thank you, Neelam. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kumar. Thank you.